The outside flat is a secondary cut product from the hindquarter and is on the outside of the leg, hence the name outside. As a whole product, it is known as a outside or a silverside. The characteristic of a silverside is the eye round muscle attached to this side piece here. Once that eye round is removed, the finished product is known as the outside flat. And once again, this muscle sits on the outside of the leg, and the top end or the point end is the area that attaches to the rump, and the bottom area is the area that attaches to the heel muscle, and then below that the shin. So a very misunderstood piece of meat, primarily used for salted beef around the world, but we're going to look at ways in which we can really elevate the value of this cut. Even if it's sold as a corned beef, we can develop a really great plate profile about this product and make sure that when we're presenting it, it always looks excellent. So really, to begin with, this is a very affordable cut. So we can afford to be a little bit rough with how we trim that. It's not like a tenderloin where we need to get every ounce of available yield to ensure our food costs are there. This is a very affordable product. So we're automatically not thinking that this is all one product that's going to deliver a price. We're looking at different cuts that we can take from this. So one of the first things is the awkwardness of the shape. You can see a little bit like a football. It doesn't lend itself well for center of plate profiling. So we can actually fix all that with our knife. So our first cut is really simply to even that cut out. I'm just going to take my knife and run in a straight line straight across the top of that outside flat or the inside portion and even that product out. Now automatically what we have left here, I'm relegating that immediately to dice meat, but it's a great dice meat. One of the big things we need to remember about secondary cuts, and particularly beef, is that they're a much older animal. In fact, Australian beef spends the first 2 years of its life out in the fields, out on grass, roaming around just like cattle are supposed to do. And so because of that, there's an amount of connective tissue that's associated with different products. And the simple fact is multiple muscle products going into one dish will cause inconsistency. So just straight away, this is a really valuable source of a single muscle dice meat, which is going to give us that level of professional consistency with particularly our ragouts and dice meat products. You can see now a characteristic of the outside flat is that little piece of silver skin. One very clever way of using that is to remove the silver skin cleanly, poach it, set it in the fridge, roll it up and set it in the fridge, thin slice that into small chips, dry them in the oven, drop them into the deep fry, and then you have a beef crisp, which is perfect accompaniment to things like tartares and that type of product. But one thing that we definitely know, silver skin plays an enormous role when we're creating braised dishes, and particularly stews and casseroles and curries. Silver skin is that product that if it's grilled, it's tough, but if it's braised correctly, this develops and gelatinizes and becomes so soft that it becomes such a beautiful part of the eating experience that it's an absolute shame to leave this out of any ragout or any dice meat products that you're doing. So we're actually going to take advantage of that, and I'm cut enough off of lean meat as well to not only straighten up this product, but to pick up that silver skin as well, and that will go into my next dish. So like I said before, we've got a very affordable product, so we can afford to be a bit tough on what we're doing. And one further step is I'm just going to square off this end. You can see just on this side, in fact, one of the characteristics of an outside flat is you can see the muscle meat is moving in that direction here. As we get towards the tail, it's starting to move in that direction. So naturally, our ultimate role is to present products so that we can cut against the grain If we can't do that, that product will not eat up to its expectation. So what I'm going to do is just simply square that portion up again, so that we end up with something relatively very consistent. And again, that can go into my dice meat. But as you can see now, I've got one complete log. Now from here, I want to develop food service shapes, and we've got a few different ways in which we can do it. Square that end up. Let's go for small, nice little portions that we can shape and use for all sorts of applications. And even if it's just going to be our corned beef, it's going to be a highly presentable corned beef. And that makes a world of difference when it comes to presentation. And then our last part, again. So you can see right now, we have those 5 distinct little pieces that are completely portionable. Now you're looking at that and saying it's square. I'm going to take that to the next stage and develop that product in a way so that we can shape that meat. And if you've listened to my segments before, I'm a great believer in using just manual massage to break down the structural fibre of the meat. In so doing, we can actually make that product more malleable, and as such we can shape that product so we can get that perfect plate profile that we look for in food service, that shows the care and the effort and the skills that we've put into producing that product. Now just instantly, look at the difference in the length just by that small amount of manipulation. So it's actually stretching those muscles as well. If I use the same product, I can do the same thing with it. Just massage that meat down, slight amount of pressure, rolling it around, breaking down the structural fibre, and then we're going to use a packaging technique to help us deliver that centre of excellence. So quickly, if I roll that now in cling wrap, put it in the fridge for 6 to 12 hours, that product will retain its shape. When I go to portion it, I'm going to have beautiful, even, consistent shapes. What I've done in the break is prepared all of those cuts so they're ready for us to present to you. You can see here I have one source of dice meat. The importance of that can't be understated. Literally, the animals, particularly beef, spend the first 2 years of their life doing what nature intended, roaming grasses, foraging out in the fields. And as such, they're a big animal, they develop a lot of connective tissue. Now, that alone makes a big difference in all the different muscle groups, because basically they're doing different jobs and different levels of activity. So for beef, because it's that little bit older and more connective tissue in there, you can't just use one style of cook to fit all. We can't put multiple muscle into one pot and expect to get that level of consistency that we can with younger animals such as lamb. So it's really important to think about when you're producing any type of particularly braising dish or ragu that you use a single muscle component. So what I have there is all going to cook at the same time, all cook evenly. I've left a lot of the silver skin in there so that it develops that unctuousness that adds to that moistness and softness and juiciness of a beautifully braised piece of meat. And this type of beef is perfect for it. Keep it well away from a burger, but definitely put it in your ragus and braises. As we saw before, we have our now food service cuts that when they're portioned will look just perfect on a plate. Now, we can corn these, but we can also roast these. Remember, the Australian product portfolio, we have a diverse supply chain. We have lots of different products, but choosing branded beef, you know you have that confidence of the consistency of the product. And at this type of product, you can afford to go up in the quality. So heading towards long-fed products and even into lower grade Wagyus, you're going to have outstanding results. So even for a roast, I can use these simple food grade bands that are designed to cook with the product, and that's just going to hold my shape. One little hack for the food for the buffets, if we ever go back to them, is that having multiple pieces as opposed to one joint ensures that, one, we can continually deliver fresh product in front of our customers. And now that we've delivered you a shape that's more consistent, you'll be able to portion more effectively, more consistently, and as I said before, more portions coming out more regularly always looks like that buffet is fresh and ready to go. So this would make an immaculate piece of roast beef. Don't forget, secondary cuts, we like to take them a little bit slower than we do our prime cuts. So lots of great cooking platforms like sous vide, low temperature cooking, reverse sear. These are all really compatible with secondary cuts. So that's one version of how we can present this for our customers. I want to show you another version where we can either prepare this product as sous vide ready, or an ideal way of presenting that product so that we can freeze it and thin slice it and give us perfect shapes. So I'm just going to take a small piece of plastic. We've massaged our product down before. Just going to now roll that really tightly in that plastic, putting as much emphasis on a point end. And once we have that product, what I've done here is taken just a normal vacuum bag and sealed it. So we've just inserted the end of the bag into our long bag, and then with a series of pulse and squeeze, just like a piping bag, we're actually going to put that inside of that tightly fitting bag. So pulse with the hand, push with the right hand. Pulse with the left hand, push with the right hand. Pulse, push, pulse and push. As you can see now, we've got that beautiful shaped product. Once again, can be sous vide at either end. Sealed and sous vide as a product by itself. But we can also freeze that product at this point, and this would then be ideal for thin slicing and giving that perfect immaculate shape for our product. So there we have different versions of ways in which we can present that and elevate the value of this outside flat so that it becomes a high-class performer in any environment. The only one thing I didn't talk about at the end was we don't waste anything anymore. That's not our policy. In fact, as far as sustainability is concerned, there's no greater message for your customers than to talk about how you utilize every part of every piece of meat that comes into your facility. And in this case, that fat, as I mentioned earlier, makes the most amazing beef tallow. And you can see a picture of it just there. You can see the crispy bits left over. That beautifully clear, fresh tallow is the aromatics out of that is just amazing, and it's going to cook the foods impeccably well. So with that, thank you. We'll see you again.